The generals, General Mattis, General Kelly. Look, one of the things that I hear from voters in focus groups, especially swing voters, is that for the voters to whom it has broken through that Donald Trump calls our vets suckers and losers, that has an impact. I think we need more of these generals to come out and say, we have to support her because he's such a threat. That's somebody that voters will trust, who saw him up close.
That was Sarah Longwell on this very program yesterday at this hour, reminding us of the impact of Trump's disdain for our veterans and the men and women of the military, the ex-president's inexperience as a leader, disregard for our values and our Constitution, and his disrespect for our country's bravest. To him, who he calls them suckers and losers. Sarah Longwell pointing out the difference it could make today to hear from military leaders who served the ex-president, who saw him up close, to hear them endorse Vice President Harris for reasons she described as, this guy's too big of a threat. People like the 10 retired generals and admirals who emphatically endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris last week, calling her, quote, the best and only presidential candidate in this race who is fit to serve as our commander-in-chief. And the ex-president, a danger who, quote, at his core does not understand selfless service and sacrifice, and he should never be allowed to again serve as commander-in-chief of the greatest fighting force in the world. Joining our coverage here at the table, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson, who signed that letter endorsing Vice President Harris, and retired U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel, founder of Democratic Majority Action PAC, Amy McGrath is back with us. Amy, first, thank you for assembling these voices that we call out for these voices. You know what's going on and can report that out, but it's a different thing to get to sit here and hear from first-person accounts about this thing that before Trump was so unprecedented, the lack of fitness. Talk about fitness in the context of military leaders calling Trump unfit to serve.
Well, it's a big deal. And first of all, many of these retired generals and admirals, they came together, before I even got involved. And I'm simply trying to highlight their voices a little bit. But one of the things that I think the American people need to know is that many of these, retired military officers, they don't want to wade into politics. This is something that is, they're taught not to do. They're apolitical. They want to remain apolitical, and that's been an important tradition in our country. But the risk of a second Donald Trump presidency is so great to not only to our democracy, but to our national security, that many of them are coming forward and saying, we have to speak up. Because this man is unfit to be the commander-in-chief. He is unfit to be the president of the United States in ways that we want the American people to know about. And I think that's unprecedented.
But let me just challenge and I think we should, it's folks like Chairman Milley, folks like Jim Mattis, folks like General Kelly, that I think people like Sarah Longwell, she name-checked all three of them, so I feel comfortable saying that. And I guess what I would push back against all three of their silence and say is, the military will be politicized if he wins. He's already tried to get the military to seize voting machines. So are they going to wait until he sends the military, the next Chairman Milley, to go seize voting machines in Georgia? Will that be the moment?
Well, that's a really good point. And I would like to make the distinction, though, between a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Milley and Secretary Mattis and John Kelly and H.R. McMaster. Why? Because the last three were political appointees. They were retired generals. Yes, but they then volunteered to become a political appointee. And that's a difference. They can't leave that post and then go back and say, well, I'm a retired general and I'm now apolitical again. No, you saw things and you owe it to the American people to tell us what you saw and do you think that this man is fit to be back in the White House? You saw him and you were in a political position when you did that. And I think that's a really important distinction.
And you're saying that they've already made that leap.
Absolutely. They're different than General Milley because General Milley served his entire career in the military. When he got out, if he doesn't want to wade into politics, hey, great, fine, okay. But the other three decided to go into political roles. Chief of Staff Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Homeland Security, National Security Advisor. Those are political roles. You take your generalship off. You might have been a former general, and that's how you got in that role, but you're not there in that role. And when you leave, this business of, well, I'm a retired general again, and I don't need to wade into politics. You know, a lot of us feel like, those of us that serve feel like, no. You jumped into the political fray. You volunteered. Now tell us what you saw. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I keep coming back to this, I guess having worked in government in a post 9/11 period where every one of us, the public, was asked, if you see something, say something. Mm-hmm. No one saw more disqualifying conduct than these men.
Absolutely. I mean, Amy's spot on. I mean, these people sat and had a front row seat to what was going on within the Trump administration. I think they have a duty, they have an obligation to share their thoughts with the American people. I mean, I commend Mark Esper and John Bolton, who have come on very strong, made statements, and they've made it very clear, you know, that they don't want to see Trump in the White House again. I think that H.R. McMaster, you know, wrote a book, read all kinds of terrible things about him, but then when it came down to telling us who he's going to vote for president, you know, he wants to have it both ways. I mean, it's sad that these people, I think they need to step up. I certainly agree, understand what Amy said, and about a lot of my brethren have difficulty in getting in the political cauldron, because that's how we were raised. I mean, 31 years I spent in the Army. I didn't know if my boss was a Democrat or Republican. I didn't know. I didn't care. But since 6 January, things have changed. Insurrection, I said, now's the time to step up. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to wait until the jackboots are marching down the street and the brown shirts come rolling out? Our kids get enrolled in Trump Youth? Is that the time to start getting involved? Of course not. We need to step up now. That's why I'm very proud to be part of National Security Leaders for America. A week ago, we had 500 members. This week, 700 members.
Wow.
So we're making some progress. People are starting to hear our message. And we realize that the military is still a vitally respected institution within the United States. Our voice will be heard by middle America. They want to hear our voice, I think, and like I said, in light of what's happened since the 6th of January, 2021, now is the time for all general officers, all former military leaders to come online and tell the American people what they think. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. He cannot be allowed to be commander-in-chief again.
Is it an active and alive back and forth? I mean, are you presenting, I mean, Donald Trump seems to be offering new evidence of his lack of fitness with his debasing of Arlington, the most precious space for any commander-in-chief before Donald Trump. I mean, is it a live conversation?
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that are on the fence about it. But I tell people this, look, inaction is action in a time like this, okay? If you choose not to step up, history will remember those that did and those that didn't. You know, we owe it to the American people to make our voices heard. And that's why National Security Leaders for America will continue to beat the drum as hard as we can. I mean, he is totally unfit. Now, the other thing about this is the national security situation in the United States. I think it's dramatically improved with Kamala Harris as commander-in-chief. Why do I say that? Because our stature as a nation will grow significantly. I travel a lot overseas. I have a lot of work and business overseas, and I'm constantly being asked, hey, are you serious? I mean, Donald Trump could get back in the White House, a cacophonous buffoon like that? And I say, yeah, unfortunately, they've got a lot of people that, you know, live and breathe by everything that he says. But Kamala Harris would be just the opposite. Why? Because she's an inspiration. Not only is she positive, and does she bring hope and optimism, but as a black woman, the product of a mixed marriage, she will inspire millions of people throughout the world. Our credibility as a nation, you know, that we would be able to allow, our country is so great that we're allowed a woman like that to become the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States. That is going to send a powerful message all over the world. People like Vladimir Putin are going to say, hey, wait a minute. These guys, you know, they truly have a democratic country. They truly are representative. They truly are fighting for all their people. And Kamala Harris is a manifestation of that.